Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om peace, peace, peace. And good evening. We are continuing with the complete works of Swami Ramakrishna, reading excerpts from his trip to Burma. And he's in a conversation with a gentleman named Sharat. I'm going to read the last paragraph again that we read last time. Sharat asks, I do not clearly understand the terms like fate, destiny, self-effort, etc. Swami replies, in this world, some are born beautiful, some ugly. Some are kings, while others are subjects. Some are Brahmins, others of low caste. Some happy, some sad. Some sinners, some virtuous. Some cruel, some compassionate. Some have earned fame through the service of God, while others are hated by cleaning filth. By launching into an inquiry of the cause of all such disparity, one cannot but accept the fate or results of works done in previous lives. Both destiny and self-effort direct our lives. Through destiny, man gets the result of his deeds performed in earlier lives in this very life. The result of the works done in the present life is enjoyed only partially in this life. That becomes the cause of happiness or misery as destiny in the next life. Even self-effort is nothing but divine power. Without his grace, the word self-effort is meaningless. Self-effort is needed in the discipline for grace, and in the discipline for self-effort, grace is needed. Sharat asks, can fate be undone? And the Swami replies, the worldly people are infatuated with ego, but when they become soaked with sorrow, disease, misery, poverty, and disappointment, when no endeavor of self-effort or labor becomes effective, then only does one think of fate and says that fate is inexorable. Sharat, if my fate may be inevitable, then what is the use of worshiping God or following religious dictates? The Swami, I firmly believe in fatalism, but I don't believe that fate cannot be undone. I don't believe that whatever is accumulated as good and bad, virtue, vice, happiness, misery in the chamber of fate by way of results of past actions is unchangeable. Nothing but the one supreme Brahman can stay in this world as incombustible, indivisible, impenetrable, undriable, or unchangeable. Where there is malady, there is remedy too. Where there is darkness, there is light too. Where there is tyranny, there is liberation too. When there is decay of religion, there is establishment of religion. This is the eternal law of the world. If the same law holds with every matter, why should there be an exception in the case of fate? Unless there is any way to reduce misery, why do people try to accumulate so much virtue? What is the utility of so much philanthropy, charity, austerity, pilgrimage, scriptural study, and the worship? If there is no way to eradicate fate or vice, then what is the need of an incarnation? What is the justification for the name Savior of Jesus Christ, or Rasul of Prophet Muhammad, or Kapala Machana of Sri Ramakrishna? Lord Krishna himself has said, take refuge in me alone. I shall liberate you from all sins. The incarnation of this age, Sri Ramakrishna has said, tears wash out the sins of previous lives. The world teacher Swami Vivekananda has said, another name for God is Kapala Mochana. By his grace, man's fate can be wiped out in a trice. Pray to God tearfully. Quote, O compassionate God, I am helpless and weak. Kindly forgive all the sins I have accumulated in this and the previous births. O Lord, exhaust all the results of my past actions. Unquote. If one prays with an attitude of regret and yearning, he must have mercy on such a soul. The mother is moved when the son cries. So indeed, this idea of self-effort and grace is always a sort of a difficult topic to navigate through. And we're often told that we should do all these, spiritual practices, and yet you can't be like a shopkeeper and think that if you do X number of japa or X number of pujas that you're going to suddenly gain enlightenment. It doesn't quite work that way. First of all, you don't know what all of your past samskaras are. And secondly, there is still an element of grace that comes in. We don't know what plans the Divine Mother and the good Lord have for us. And so we have to simply accumulate as much good karma as possible to make the road to ultimate enlightenment easier for us and as least painful as possible. And I think also that when one achieves a level of liberation, some sort of realization, they realize that it's beyond anything they could have achieved by their own effort. So even though the effort was there, and they've been working hard for their spiritual life, once it comes, it is completely overwhelming and unlike anything else that has ever happened. And so they realize that there is an element of grace that has to come in. It's impossible to figure how one could do anything in this life that would equal the bliss of that final feeling of samadhi. So, and of course, Holy Mother used to say that, if you do your spiritual practices, then your karma can be mitigated. So if you were destined to break a leg, you may just get a scratch on your leg instead. So she also agreed with this point that while karma is still going to be working out, it will be much less for someone who is sincerely trying to improve and lead a spiritual life. And of course, we also, and which you'll get into here as well, we don't know what lessons we need to learn, and so sometimes lessons are difficult to learn, and they cause us pain and difficulty in order to learn them. So a lot of times the pains and difficulties of life are simply the way the universe has of giving us the lessons we need in order to progress. Now, Sharat says, or asks, can all cry? And Swami replies, your problem is that you are too intellectual. Remove the crooked part of your intellect and the road becomes easy. None has attained to God realization merely through smile. Whoever has realized him got him through tears alone. And this can be a problem. Some people analyze things and ask too many questions and never get down to business. And ultimately, a lot of this is beyond our comprehension. The universe is structured in such a peculiar way. It's like a magic show, and unless you're a magician, which means in this context enlightened, you can't understand really what's going on. Only a magician knows how the magic tricks go. The rest of us are puzzled by the way it goes. Sharat, can one become a monk without wearing the ochre robe? Swami, Religion is in the mind. One can become mentally free even without ochre cloth. Man is bound by mind and also free by mind. First, the mind is needed, and then comes external help. If the mind is trained, the ochre cloth also helps a bit in external matters. On the other hand, the impure mind helps in hypocrisy through the ochre cloth. Wearing ochre cloth, smearing marks on the forehead, going to pilgrimage, singing devotional songs, counting beads, performing austerities, etc., are not religion. They are the external coverings of religion. These only help the human mind to become eligible for God's grace. And yet one must be careful not to just put those things on as mere show, to try to show everyone how greatly spiritual you are. That's just fooling yourself and others. Sharat, then what leads to liberation? Swami, unless the individual soul becomes forgetful of itself for the sake of the Supreme Self, the way to liberation cannot be found. Sharat, what are the rules laid down for those who want to become monks? Swami, to be a monk in the monastery, one has to remain a novitiate for 3 years. The next 3 years, he has to observe the vow of celibacy. After these 6 years, the head of the monastery will consider you eligible for sannyasa before ordaining you into the lifelong vows. The monks of the mott will have to be ideal renouncers, ideal servants, ideal yogins, and ideal devotees. Now they've increased those years to 5 and 4. Sharat, what should one learn in course of those 6 years? Swami, the motto of the mission is renunciation and service, giving up attachment for the world, seeing God in all beings, and serving all beings as the representations of Shiva. Sharat, the work of serving others can best be learned from the ladies of the household. Can there be any higher ideal than the way a Hindu woman serves her husband and child? Swami, there is a tinge of selfishness even in the service of the chaste wife for her husband, but the monks and brahmacharins of the mott pick up helpless patients from the roadside and serve them unselfishly as Narayana. Sharat, the rules of the mott are very tough. 6 years of a novitiate life. One becomes a doctor by studying in the medical college for 6 years. See how intellectual he is, constantly asking questions. Swami, a doctor can treat the physical ailments, but by becoming a monk, one gets rid of the dilemma of the world. Sharat, every year millions of monks assemble in the Kumbh Mela festival. Will they all be rid of the worldly dilemma? Swami, among them, many wear the monks' robes for filling their stomachs, for name and fame, for earning money in lieu of medicines, and in order to avoid punishment from the king. But there are very few monks who are all renouncing, discriminating, and detached just for the sake of God. One becomes an all-renouncing monk as a result of austerity through several lives, which detaches one from lust and lucre. Without the intense desire for liberation, one cannot become a monk. In the company of Swami Ramakrishna, a burning example of renunciation, the playmate of Sri Ramakrishna, the living image of devotion to Guru, the atheist Sharat Chandra was transformed into a believer of God. When the Swami was about to take leave, many Bengali and South Indian devotees paid their obeisance and left. Seeing their eyes heavy with tears, Sharat Chandra was also moved. Everybody's hearts were filled with a deep spiritual fervor. By his holy touch, the spiritual moods of many people were aroused. He boarded the ship on Saturday, the 25th of March at Rangoon and reached Madras on the 29th morning. That very evening, he left for Bombay to speak on the occasion of the birthday celebration of Sri Ramakrishna. The seed that he sowed in Rangoon in 1905 turned into a huge tree in the course of time. About 20 years later, a large charitable hospital and dispensary, along with library and reading room, were established there by the Ramakrishna mission. So that ends that section on his trip to Burma. And this particular one is a talk, a half-hour talk with Swami Ramakrishna. And so this first section is I guess a letter. It says, Dear Swami, anyway. And I assume it's from this G.N.A. Ranganathan Sharma, who apparently also was struggling with the idea of whether to become a monk or not. He says, Dear Swami, at a most critical period in my life, the late Swami Ramakrishna helped me to understand myself better than I did. Okay, he's writing a letter to the editor of Prabhupada Bharata. That's what's happening here. I did just after leaving college in 1907 at the age of 23. Sorry, let me start that again. At a critical part in my life, the late Swami Ramakrishna helped me to understand myself better than I did. Just after leaving college in 1907 at the age of 23, I was pressed by my parents to look for an opening in life, but my attempts in this direction were very feeble. The religious literature that I largely read at the time, Theosophic, Vedantic, and others, led me to lose much attraction for the worldly life and to think of serving humanity. In this state of do-nothingness, I would dream of nursing the sick and distributing food to the hungry and clothes to the naked, though I had not a copper that I could call my own. Without any special training, I would think of being a teacher to the pariahs and so on. But I had been married. Should I forsake my wife and renounce the world to serve society and the public in order that I might devote my whole life to this work? Was the thought that looked so much bold upon me, it took so much hold upon me, that I wrote at once to Sister Nivedita, requesting her to suggest to me some course of action best suited to me. According to her wise advice, I went to Swami Ramakrishna in Madras, walking the 4 miles from our place, and freely opened my mind to him. The Swami did not ridicule me for my ambitious schemes, born of inexperience, or upbraided me for my foolish thought of deserting my wife. Buddha-like serenity sat upon his forehead. His eyebrows were lifted in contemplation for a time, and then his deep, kindly eyes were fixed upon me, and his lips parted to give expression to the words of wisdom, of which I give the following imperfect summary. There's a widespread mistaken notion that the religious life cannot be lived in the family. There is nothing unholy or unspiritual in the family life per se. There is full scope for unselfishness in the matter of working for others who need your protection, even in the householder's life. The bachelor has, no doubt, comparatively more freedom of action than a married man. He has to look to the fulfillment of his duties towards his parents, first of all, before he wishes to breathe a freer atmosphere than that of the home. But the former has, besides this, other duties to perform, that is, duties to his wife, who has a claim to his spiritual participation in his lot, to society, for if not the householder, who is to maintain the brahmachari or the sannyasi, and to prosperity, through his bringing up children in such a way as to be serviceable to society. It is clearly impossible to have any field of service properly attended to if all married people were to break their marital ties and straightway turn to sannyasins. Also, you must rightly differentiate the true soaring spirit to which earthly ties are as nothing, from the rebellious spirit which is impatient of restraints. If your spirit is of the former kind, do you really feel within you the irresistible and unmistakable call. Such a call comes to very few indeed, and they stand in no need of weighing or asking the question if they should incur any sin by breaking the shackles of samsara. They hear the voice and are not conscious of anything but obeying it. If yours is not such a spirit, then submit yourself to a searching self-analysis of the true motive of your action and find out for yourself if it is not akin to the spirit that fights shy of bearing the necessary burdens of life, the spirit that lacks the heroism to accept life as it is, the spirit that is loath to be useful in humble grooves best suited to itself because of its false ambition to loom large in the broad daylight of the world for the sake of name and fame. Reflect well over these questions. There is no hurry at all. If need be, come to me again. And then Mr. Sharma adds a note. There was no need. The illuminative discourse gave me so much penetration into the obscure workings of the human mind that I came out of the Swami's holy presence fully resolved to choose a suitable, humble sphere of life and do my duties as best I could in it. I have every reason to be thankful to the Swami and to congratulate myself on having acted on his valuable advice. So, that interesting discourse. Obviously, very few people are suited for monastic life, and he points out how there are many, many opportunities for people living the normal worldly and married life for service to others. Everything you're doing really it can be thought of as some service. You're serving the rest of the members of your family, and hopefully you have a type of job which gives you a feeling of being of service to others. And you should try to take that attitude when you're doing the job. If you're creating a new product, think of the service you're giving to your customer, not your profit, but your service. My sister had a friend who sold linens in a department store, and she absolutely loved her job. And the reason she loved her job is that she got to know the customer and their needs and tried to fulfill their needs and be of service to them. She wasn't trying to just sell anything she could sell. She really wanted to help the person make the best purchase possible. So that kind of attitude is the kind of attitude that helps us to, in our attempt to spiritualize our everyday existence. All right, we're coming down to the wire. We've only got a couple pages, so we may end a little early today, and then we'll pick up a different book next week. True education. True education consists in the sacrifice of vanity and the manifestation of God within. So a very different idea. You might think he's going to talk about how to run a school or something, but in fact, he does have a book on education. But in this particular lecture, he's going to focus on educating a person to find ways of sacrificing the vanity and manifestation of the God within. So sacrificing the ego, really. And that's, of course, the biggest obstacle to our spiritual life is the ego, which was mentioned earlier. There have always been sects who have believed that it is impossible to perform their worship without animal sacrifice. In reality, no devotee can begin his worship without such animal sacrifice. And the animal to be sacrificed is the ego. Okay? Until the ego is sacrificed, one cannot hope to approach God. And of course, we just had Kali Puja, and Mother Kali's holding this head in her hand, and that symbolizes how she can cut our ego off. If we properly worship Mother Kali with sincere prayers for helping us in our spiritual practice, she's going to eventually cut off our ego, which is symbolized by cutting off the head. So Just like the Queen in Alice in Wonderland, right? Off with their heads. All right. Destruction of the ego can be affected by humility. Low ground collects all the water, all the rainwater. So the lowly collect all the grace, not only what falls on them directly, but also what falls off from the unperceiving and proud. God's grace is on all, but some do not know how to receive it, and so it drops away from them. That's an interesting idea. I hadn't read that before anywhere that I can think of. The idea of the rain collecting in a low spot we read quite often, but the idea that the grace that falls on unperceiving people, they don't get it, and so then it falls on the people that are ready to receive it. So that's a nice idea. And certainly this is, the idea behind spiritual practice is to, as Ramakrishna would say, setting your sail to receive the grace, the bliss, the breeze of grace. If you don't set your sail, you can't receive the grace. So there is self-effort and grace there, again, in that simile. And so this just inspires us to continue all of our spiritual practices so that we can be ready to receive the grace. And you don't need to feel like you're being selfish, grabbing everybody else's grace that didn't get it, because the better you are spiritually, that will shine from you and inspire others. And so those that missed it the first time will be inspired to quicken up their spiritual life and be ready the next time. It is good to go from place to place to do homage to holy men and women. Vedanta does not take away from us our reverence for others. Although it teaches that everything is inside us, that nothing is outside, that we are infinite, still we know that what is true for us must be true for others also. If infinity is here, it is also there. It is everywhere. The only difference is in the manifestation. In trees and plants, the manifestation is less. In animals, it is a little more. And in man, still more. And in the man who has realized God, it is full. So that man is godlike. In Sri Ramakrishna, the infinite was fully manifested. So through him, we can gain an idea of Godhead. In us, it is a little less manifested. Therefore, we can go and do homage to those who show it forth more fully. Thus, Vedanta does not take from us our humility and regard for others. On the contrary, it teaches us to bow down to God everywhere. And that's really an important point. If you take an extreme Advaitic position and repeat that I am Brahman, there's a danger that you forget everybody else is also Brahman. And so that's, every path has a pitfall. And so you have to be careful of that type of egotism. It becomes a spiritual egotism. So that kind of attitude has to be guarded against. And so his advice here is very well taken, that everyone needs to be seen as a manifestation of God in some form. And sometimes it's a difficult form. It's a form that maybe causes you problems. And you have to ask, why is God coming to me in this difficult form? What am I supposed to learn from this? And you also have to realize your limitations. You can't help people that you're not equipped to help. So you have to be sure that you are helping people that you're really equipped to help, and not trying to help when you simply don't have the expertise or training or skills or temperament for that. And you can be admiring of those that have those other kinds of temperaments. Everybody has some sort of strength, and so try to see the good in others, just like Dolly Parton says on her billboards. That's very wise advice, because you want to, that's a part of seeing that divine spark manifested in everyone. When we sit in deep meditation, the world may slip away from our memory, and even memory itself disappears. But when we come back to the universe, we still have our duties, the duty of the child to the parent, or of the disciple to the master. We must not bring one condition into the other. With the disappearance of memory, the world also goes away, as in sleep. But as long as we remember, the world must exist for us and have some claim on us. So, now of course, you want to bring, your meditation should prepare your mind to work in the world with a different attitude. So he's not saying that your meditation and your worldly life are completely separate. That's not what he's saying. But what he's saying is that even though in meditation the idea of the world and your duties all slip away, you're focused on God in some form, that you don't let all your duties slip away when you come out of meditation. You're still dealing with the world, but hopefully your meditation has prepared you to deal with the world in a more spiritual way. And as he said in the previous paragraph, one way is to remember that that divine spark is within all other people as well as you. That's really the key. Really, again, the bottom line for all religions are finding ways to remember divinity in all aspects of your life. So in your work life, your play life, your family life, your personal life, your meditative life, all of those are supposed to focus on ways that you're remembering your divine essence and the divine essence that permeates the entire manifestation. Remember, as we've said during this Mother season, that Brahman and Shakti are one. So the manifest universe is nothing but a manifestation of Brahman, the power of Brahman. And so even though we don't see it that way, it seems like a material world, there is a spiritual essence to it. And we should always remember that. That, of course, should manifest in our treatment of the world, our environment, making sure that we're doing what we can to protect the environment. And, traditional Hindu ideas would always have space for leaving part of the land for nature preserve and so forth, so that the animals and plants have their own place, and another part for farming and so forth. So proper use of the land is an important aspect, and it's something that we have woken up to a bit too late here in the West, and now we have a lot of catching up to do. So hopefully all you young folks out there that perhaps are still studying in college and getting degrees in whatever, maybe engineering or environmental studies, can come up with ways of solving the problem. When I was a young person, I remember our big problem was smog. The smog in LA was so thick you could cut it with a knife. You would go to school and you would come home and your lungs would hurt every time you took a deep breath. Your eyes would burn. It was absolutely horrible. And somehow they managed to clear up the air, and we thought that was the problem, getting rid of all those nitrous oxides that created that yellowish brown guck that hung down into the Los Angeles basin. We had no idea at that time that carbon dioxide was also a problem. And so now we've woken up to the fact that carbon dioxide is also a problem because it's a greenhouse gas. And of course, methane is something like 8 times worse as a greenhouse gas. So all of these things we have now woken up to, and it is very late in the clock to try to fix all of these problems. Now, if several volcanoes spew various compounds into the upper stratosphere and reflect all the light, we may have a global winter, so we may have the opposite problem. Who knows? Mother Nature can throw lots of curves at us. So that might give us a few more years to straighten things out. So we can only hope that the divine plan is to not have things completely fall apart, and that we can redeem Mother Earth to some extent. All right, so we'll close a little early tonight, and we'll resume with a new book next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace.